All right, welcome to the stock market recap for Tuesday, July 15th. In this video, like all the daily recaps I do, we'll take a look at the indexes, liquid leaders, industry ETFs, then end the video with some long and short setups going into tomorrow. But before we get started with the charts, I do want to shout out a promotion that Deepvue is running where you could try the platform out completely risk-free for a month. You don't even have to put in your credit card information. Deepvue is the platform that I'm obviously using for this video, but also use for all of my screening, charting, historical analysis, basically everything involved in trading. I use Deepvue for. So make sure you click on the link in the pinned comment below to get started. And if you want to use Deepvue exactly how I do, I've also shared all of my screens, my watch lists, column sets, and data panels. So you can basically copy everything that I have in Deepvue set up so you can use the platform exactly like I do. All right, let's jump into the indexes. QQQ, we had a nice gap up this morning with the news that NVIDIA could sell certain chips to China. Had a pretty strong gap up again at new highs, but eventually weakness crept in and we sold off basically the rest of the day, closing at the low of the day. Still positive for QQQ, which is tech heavy, up 0.09%, but not great action when you open near the high of the day, close near the low after trying to break out of a range. So a little bit of a warning sign there. SPY a little bit weaker as well, down 0.4% on the day, closing below the 5-day moving average. We gapped up over this previous resistance gap and the all-time highs, and similar to QQQ, open near the high, close near the low. Now we've got this 10-day moving average and slight gap up zone around 620. That could be a potential support area, but if we lose that, then it looks likely that we'll test that 20-day moving average. Next, we have the growth stocks of the Russell 2000. That's the ticker IWO. Also opened at the high, closed near the low, opened into this resistance gap and closed back below the 5 and the 10-day moving average. So now we have some relative weakness in the more growthy type names. We do have the 20-day moving average and support gap just below at 285 as a potential undercut and hold for a higher low. That would be the ideal kind of action. But if we do close below both of those areas, chances are we'll have to go through a full retest of the 200-day and the 50-day moving average, and maybe some consolidation before chopping higher. ARKK, also kind of an outside down day, closed at the 5-day moving average, end of the day down 1.4%. But we did close slightly above the support gap and the 10-day moving average. So overall, not anything concerning. We've seen some red days right at the 5-day moving average before, and after some consolidation, we have trended higher. And finally, Bitcoin, we're looking at BTC. After yesterday's reversal off the morning open, we followed through to the downside, but still just at the 5-day exponential moving average. We do have a little bit more volume on the ETF. I would need to take a look at Bitcoin to be more concerned, but overall, this could just be a breakout retest. Really, I'm just looking for a pullback into the 10-day or even the 20-day. As long as we don't lose the breakout point, overall, I think Bitcoin is fine. Next, we could take a look at the liquid leaders. First off, we have NVIDIA with that massive gap up, ending the day up 4%. But kind of a doji close where we close slightly below the open, but with a gap up that large after already being a little extended, some consolidation here is perfectly healthy. Um, Basically, want to see this gap zone hold on a closing basis. Otherwise, this could be kind of a local top, and we need some more time to pull back. GEV, new all-time highs today, up another 0.8%, bounced off the 5-day moving average, closed at the high. Roblox, higher highs, higher lows, new 52-week high. Great action after yesterday's gap up and strong close. Royal Caribbean, slight gap down. Actually, let me clean up some of this chart. Slight gap down, bounced at the support gap, reclaimed the 5-day moving average, but we do have our first very small gap down to get through. Sooner we can do that, the better. Robinhood, we got some news that a crypto bill wasn't passed or wasn't going to be voted on. And we saw Robinhood, some other crypto names, we'll talk about Coinbase in a second here, kind of sell off in the second half of the day. But Robinhood continues to be the market leader. We undercut the 5-day moving average, undercut the support gap, but rallied back above both, ending the day only down 0.4%. Let me jump to Coinbase, which is the other crypto name in the liquid leaders, a little bit more volatile. We did undercut the 5 day, nearly got to the 10-day moving average before railing and closing back above that and that support gap. Very small area there. Would like to see the 10-day moving average hold on a closing basis. Otherwise, Bitcoin and crypto might need some more time to consolidate. Next, we have FUTU, not doing anything wrong, down 0.6% today. Still just consolidating above the 5 day moving average after an explosive breakout here on volume. 2 days of very low volume consolidating. This probably is ready to get going again shortly. SOFI continues to consolidate above the 5 day moving average. Higher highs, higher lows. Did close near the low of the day, but on low volume. Low volume low volume red closes over the 5 day moving average. I just as as consolidation. If we get a gap up opening range break, that could be like an intraday trade or day trade. I do think we're a little extended at this point to kind of build a full position on an entry tactic like that, but you could still play a momentum move to the upside after some consolidation last 3 days. And then the weakest stock in the group, which I might replace, is Uber. Today, we followed through below the 10-day moving average, right at the 20-day and that support gap. I actually bought a little bit more today on the undercut and rally of the support gap. We didn't get much traction on it. We had a nice bounce intraday. Here, I'll show this on like a 5-minute chart. So we sold off, gapped up, sold off, had like one consolidation bar on the 5 minute, and then sold off again, undercut the support gap low, and then reclaimed it. That was the buy point at 92.05. Stop is the low of the day. So very, very tight risk on an entry like that. But when a leader pulls back to the 20-day moving average for the first time after making new highs, and you have a support gap zone there, I tend to take those trades and risk a little bit of a gap down, 1 or 2%. And if we get a gap up, that tends to reignite the uptrend, and I've got a really great risk reward spot to play for a larger move. So that's my thoughts on Uber. A couple other names like Palantir. Whoops. Palantir might replace it if we follow through to the downside. RKLB looking great. SMR with the nuclear theme, or LEU with that same theme, also acting great. And ASTS, whoops, sorry about that. Another name that has a lot of power potential, already acting really great off that 20-day moving average test. So just because we've got the 9 liquid leaders here doesn't mean there's not better stocks or more stocks in the market that are ready to take the place of any weaker names. So we'll keep an eye on Uber. Next, we'll get to the industry ETFs, and the main focus today that we've been pounding the table on, if you've been watching these daily recaps, is China, China, China. Taking a look at KWEB, this is the Chinese Internet ETF. Let's go to a weekly chart. We've been basing out for 3.5 years now. We finally got some news that would break us out of this daily consolidation, which was NVIDIA being able to sell chips to China. Another kind of name in that group, Alibaba, big move up today, up 8%, kind of approaching that 50-day moving average. And really, when you have a massive base like this and you start to break out on heavy volume on news, that's a theme that you need to be focused on. So for me, China is probably the theme that I'm most focused on, with nuclear um, as kind of a secondary name. SMH, semiconductor ETF, big gap up with the NVIDIA news, closed slightly below the open, but with a gap up like that, that's fine, up 1.9% and another new all-time high. Just a monster trend off the lows from 173 to 290. Not even testing the 20-day moving average after April 30th. TAN, the solar ETF, continues to trade sideways above the 5 day moving average after an explosive move after bad news came out. Another reason why I think solar has probably bottomed. Really tight price action above the 5 day moving average after an explosive move is not bearish. That is bullish, but we do have a lot of gap down zones to get through. Other groups that I wanted to cover, ITB inflation came in, CPI came in slightly hotter than expected, and home builders got whacked because of that, down 3.9%, losing the 5-day, the 10-day, and the 20-day, closing on the low with higher volume than the previous day. Now, after an ugly candle like this, if we get an unfilled gap up and then a strong close, that could be a nice kind of later shakeout and higher low to really get the trend going. But if we follow through to the downside, which I kind of feel like we will, it's just not a theme that we want to be focused on. XBI biotech ETF, again with the uppercut and fail of the resistance gap. Then we lost the 5 and the 10-day moving average on a closing basis with a little bit of uptick in volume. And then the other one, XLF financial ETF, we lost the 20-day moving average, the gap zone, and closed on the low. And we do have an overhead resistance gap. Whoops, forgot to draw today's gap down as well. So starting to build some evidence of a short-term top right there, pull back into kind of the overall breakout retest of the 50-day moving average might be where this pullback ends. But for now, we've lost the 20-day. So to me, that's a concerning sign. So we'll jump to some long setups. I only found 7, and none of them are screaming that you have to buy, which makes me feel like we're in a little bit more of a choppy environment or a pullback upcoming. So we don't want to force any of these trades, but just wanted to throw a couple on your radar. 2 of them, solar stocks. I obviously just covered. I think that is a theme that we should focus on in the second half of 2025. NXT is the leader in that group, has already made new all-time highs. IPO stock. That has pulled back into the 20-day moving average, had an ugly close yesterday, and followed it up with a gap up, strong close back through the 20, the 10, and the 5-day moving average. Only downside was it was on lighter volume than yesterday, but overall, great price action after that kind of breakout retest. Now I would be looking for an inside day or two before taking out an upper pivot or a pullback on market weakness into that 20-day moving average, into that gap zone, right around 60-60 as a spot to get involved. SEDG, this is another name that I've been tracking for a while now, continues to consolidate above the 5-day moving average for the most part. We had one ugly close under the 5-day on the 11th, followed it up with a gap up, and then strong action today. We did squat a little bit, but unlike most stocks, we still closed above the opening price, still closed positive, up 2.5%. This is just kind of like a pivot retest for me after squatting. So through 2760 is a potential buy spot. I would use the 5-day EMA and today's low as my stop. QBTS, a quantum name, really nice rally from $1 up to 10, consolidated, rallied again, made new highs, and now we're just flagging out here, potentially putting in a higher low after a lower high here. I would love to see some market weakness, either tomorrow, Thursday, or Friday. Get this to pull back into the 50-day moving average, into this gap zone, right at 1483. Another cut of 15, the 50-day, and a gap zone would give a really good, really tight risk reward spot to play and size up. Otherwise, 1 or 2 day pullback, and then you could use today's high as a potential entry. CRS, this was on the watch list yesterday, and I kind of feel like this is sneaky a do or die spot. Really tight price action, but we're kind of wedging up here. We've held both of the support gaps, held the key moving averages overall, so not doing anything too wrong. We had 3 shakeout days. Then yesterday was an inside day. Today we tried to get going, but was just a little bit weak with the overall market pulling back. Still finished flat on the day. So just looking for another breakthrough today's high, 280, 85 or so as a potential entry. And then stop would be that 10-day moving average and support gap area. SEZL, one of the growth names that was on a monster tear from $25 up to 180. From there, we had a really nice short on the uppercut and failure of the resistance gap, followed through the 5, the 10, then the 20, then really starting to accelerate to the downside. Then basically just holding at the support gap area. Because where the market's at, I would want to buy this on weakness and on further weakness. I want to see a sell off back through the 50-day moving average and the support gap zone right around 120 as a potential undercut and rally there for a short term, like oversold bounce. CRCL, this was on the watch list going into today. It's on the watch list again tomorrow. Inside day, slight gap down and some relative weakness, but on a closing range basis, a little bit stronger than most stocks in the market. Ideally, we get a unfilled gap up, and then we take out today's high as a potential entry, or you could use the opening range break. Stop would be the low of the day as a tighter entry point. And then last stock I have, RGTI. This was on the watch list as well yesterday. Higher highs, higher lows, slightly red close overall. Just looking for a breakthrough today's high, $13 as a potential entry. Stop would be the 20-day EMA or today's low at 12.50. Now we jump to the short setups. First, we have APP. After yesterday's strength, that basically got stopped at the 50-day moving average. We followed that through with a gap down, slightly like stronger close overall than most stocks, but down 0.9%. After you get an uppercut of previous highs, uppercut of a key moving average, follow it with a gap down. It's a potential short through today's low or an uppercut and failure of that gap zone high and that 50-day moving average. That would be ideal because then you could get a very tight stop and size it up a little bit more. But overall, this is just a name that has already made its monster move from $9 up to 527. To me, this just needs a lot more time to consolidate. Tesla, uppercut and failed at the 50 yesterday, uppercut and failed at the 50 today. I should have moved that resistance gap down. And then lost the 20-day, the 5, and the 10 right at the closing price today. I want to see a rally up into the resistance gap as a potential entry. So uppercut and fail the resistance gap. Stop would be the rally point high at 322. What is this? 322.60. DXYZ, another name that's been on the short watch list multiple times. We had that nice 3-day rally last week. A little bit of weakness on Monday with the gap down. Today, we uppercut the 50-day moving average and the resistance gap, then closed at the low of the day, right on the 20 and the 5-day moving average. Through today's lows short or a quick uppercut and fail at $39, that resistance gap would be a little bit better for me because then I can keep a tighter stop and size it up. HIMS continues to just kind of drag higher with the market. Another test of that rising 50-day moving average. We did close weak along with the rest of the market. We did it on lower volume though, so I'm not. This is one of the setups that I'm kind of using as a gauge to whether this is a risk on market or maybe we're getting more risk off. Not a huge conviction trade, but we do have the wedge into the 50-day moving average, some weakness today, relative weakness overall with that major gap down on volume. So the setup is there. For me, just the conviction's not quite there. I'd still take a trade through today's low, but personally wouldn't be sizing it as much. ZEEP, this is a name that's starting to get extended on the short term. We've gone from 227 up to 1470 or so today. Looking for another gap up, range break, and then reversal as a potential short. Basically, with these names, you want to stay on the right side of the VWAP. So if price is above the daily VWAP tomorrow, I don't want to be short it. I You could trade it long intraday. I'm not going to be doing that. If price is below VWAP, then you could short it. And if price comes right back through, just take the loss. It's not worth trying to like stick with a name with this much power that is already working against you. So with these names that are extended and it's not basically I'm playing an overbought um, top. I always want to stay on the side of the VWAP and play it with tighter risks there. And I think this was on the short watch list yesterday as well. Today, uppercut and lost the previous highs. I did start to sprinkle in some shorts there. Then we lost the resistance gap, um, the top of the resistance gap, and $50. I sprinkled in a little bit more there. So I do have a short on this already. Ideally, we get a gap down, mini rally up into that resistance gap, and then we roll over and fail. But this is a name that's gone like $6 up to $50 in just a couple sessions. So now that we're starting to see volatility pick up, it's usually a sign that things might rotate to the downside, especially with the general market kind of being extended. Next, we have NUTX. I think we've talked about this a couple times as well. Already made a monster run from $4 up to 134. Lately, we kind of have this head and shoulders pattern where you're always looking for the right side of the shoulder to be lower than the left. That's what we're getting with bumped into the 50-day moving average getting rejected. Now we're starting to build this little ledge under the key moving averages, and you have the support gap where we've wicked off multiple times. So what I want to see is a break under today's low would be the trigger to short, but I want to see a close under these ranges to be confident. Otherwise, I would just throw the stock back. Don't want to be holding anything overnight that has the ability to make these monster moves to the upside without some proof that the buyers at this area at 110 are gone. NAKA, another name that's been on the short watch list for a while, bounces between the support gap and resistance gap and the key moving averages, really starting to put in like lower high, lower high, lower high, all the key moving averages above price. Another name that through today's low is the trigger on the short. And if this rolls over, it can make a very quick move down. So even though it is slightly thinner, I try to size it still appropriately, but it can it can make a pretty quick move in a short amount of time. So I want to give those the proper size, even if I am a little risky on a reversal. Then last stock, VVPR. This has already made like a high, had a big malfunction bar on the 29th, lower high, lower low, lower high, higher low, and then to yesterday wicked the previous highs, closed low, then got really tight today on the 5-day moving average. Whenever you get that, like a false breakout, then consolidation, if you follow through to the downside, you have a nice clean entry at 513, the low of the day, 516, the low of the day. Stop would be the high of the day at 555. All right, that's going to be the daily market recap for Tuesday, July 15th. Make sure you're giving Deepvue that promotion a try where you could try it completely risk-free. Don't even need to put your credit card in for a full month. And if you do try it, make sure you are using all the links that I've pinned in the comment below so you can get the screens that I run every day, some of my watch lists like the liquid leaders, the ETFs, column sets, and the data panel that I use. So you can use Deepvue exactly how I do. Enjoy the rest of your night, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Take care.